good. Cool. Any questions, jump in. I'm just trying to work out some movements through loads of different keys. Yes, I do. Right, I just want to record that somewhere. No, I can't. Oh wait, it's on here live, isn't it? Just make a note of that. What was that? Minute 3:11. E major. Yes, I do all of my own setups and stuff. Years and years and years ago I used to take guitars in. But I think one of the things you'll find is that the main thing that changes for me over the year, about 2 times a year, I'll have to adjust a truss rod on most guitars, just because of the changes in weather. Aside from that, I don't find that my guitars change that much, and so if you just put new strings on a guitar, generally you'll find that it kind of feels like it used to. Does that make sense at all? Like, as a string ages, you'll find that it gets kind of poorer intonation, especially if you get build up of dirt under it. But if you go back to putting another new set of strings that are the same as you had on before, it very quickly kind of feels exactly like it used to, and things intonate as they should, in my experience. To here. Need some sort of voicing for F sharp major. It's not going to do it, is it? Definitely a Fender type amp. The one exception would be like a Marshall JTM 45. I quite like those kinds of clean tones. Thank you for the question. But yeah, in general, a Fender type, I think. So where was I? Interesting voicing for that. No. Hi Ron, how you doing? Plexi's turned down, I guess would be similar to a JTM 45, not that I've got much experience, but yeah. I think I prefer a Fender type tone, but again, like I say, I've not played a lot of Marshalls, I guess. Certainly I'm not a huge fan of many Marshall amps in my experience, but I did have a JTM 45 for a while, and except for it being extremely loud and very difficult to get any gain out of the actual amp itself without pedals, I thought it was a decent amp. I didn't study jazz in school, no. Hey Tim, how you doing? should go and get a coffee, shouldn't I? I can't get a voice out of this kind of thing. Hey Josh, which pedals are you using? Jason, fire away your question, I'll get to it. I'm just going to see if Josh has got, what pedals are you using with the board? So it's a great question, Jason. I think, yeah, wasn't the Fender Bassman was what the first Marshalls were based off, isn't it? Yeah, by the way, the Secret Herbs and Spices, that video, to me it sounds a bit like Eric Johnson, but apparently he doesn't use his fuzz for his main lead tone anyway, but I thought it sounded quite close. Tuner, so you wouldn't necessarily need the tuner, because you've got a tuner on the Helix anyway. The wah, I believe, would go in front. The flanger, so to me, I think you'd want pretty much all of that in front of your modeler, I think. So you could have your tuner in front if you wanted to still use it. The wah definitely goes in front. The flanger can go in front, and the octaver can go in front, and the distortion. So I think I would just plug that pedal board in front of a modeler, whether it was an Iridium or an HX Stomp or a Helix, whatever you're using. I think that would go in front. I could be wrong. Someone might have a good reason why you wouldn't want to do that. But I don't think you'd put many of those effects post the amp. Perhaps a flanger you might. Perhaps an octaver you might sometimes. But to me, I think signal chain wise, you could happily put all of that in front of. Right. Oh, that's quite nice. Hey, how you doing? Let me see if I can pronounce that. Inigo. I'm going to go for. Hope things are okay for you over there. I think things are a little bit scary in Spain right now from the news, but I don't know whether I believe all of the news. I use Sony Vegas. Right, back to C then. Let's try something in C. Now we're in F, hopefully. whichever the time is right, 2-note per string arpeggios the other day. Can I expand on that a bit? Right, yeah, so if you... I've been talking to HW and I think we're going to do some stuff on the IRs. So that'll probably mean me chucking some into my normal Helix patches and seeing how I get on with them. Yeah. How do you find them, Jason? Oh, I'm trying to type to you. So Raunch. If you've heard of a guitarist called Ben Unison, I think that's a guy who's got a very good introduction to 2-note per string arpeggios on YouTube, if you check him out at some point. But so I'll just go through my thinking about why I'm interested in them. So if you take, for instance, a C like arpeggio, a normal kind of that kind of major 7 arpeggio, yeah, that goes a few octaves, 2 octaves there on it. I'm trying to type to you, but it won't let me. That's Ben, E-U-N-S-O-N. So these kinds of arpeggios have a use, but I feel like they can be sort of irregular. No, unison, E-U-N-S-O-N. So 2 notes per string, you'd end up moving up the neck in this kind of fashion. Which is kind of a nice way to kind of visualize the notes as well. And you can also do 3 octaves, so whoops. Whoops. Anyway, I'm new to these as well, so I can't play them properly either. So there would be a major 7 one. I'll try and play the dominant 7. Nope. That sort of thing. Let's try that again. Anyway, so the basic gist of it is that you're thinking more across the neck than just stuck in one shape. So I think it's kind of got some merits. I need to explore it more myself, but this is just when someone asked me about arpeggios, I thought it'd be worth telling them about that approach before the one that I've been playing for ages, which I find is a little bit, I don't know, it feels a little bit restricted to me, the traditional kind of arpeggio stuff. I don't know why. So that's yeah, Ben Unison's got a cool video on him. No, that's not where am I? Where am I? Yeah, exactly. You end up always starting it from one place, and then your fingers just naturally fall into that part. The two thing, yeah, exactly. The two thing, I guess it makes it feel a little bit more like a pentatonic kind of shape. Something about it seems to, and like for instance, if I try to play the 2-string starting, so we're still C major, but I'll try and start it from the G. That feels quite easy. Some of the other inversions can feel a bit tricky. This 2-string method, I haven't done it enough to know for sure, but it feels like it might come a bit more naturally. Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, Ben Unison is the guy to look at for that. There's also things like there's also a thing that he did on. Let me try and think what it is. So like the triads, but in these kind of big Sean Lane user tends to colour notes and person to sliding into and out of target notes. Yeah. Love that tune. Right, so where was I? E major, no, we'll start back in B flat. Hey Isaac. There was 3 Nights videos. There's one not Knight Rider. You might want to check that one out, the Baywatch one. There's also some stuff that went up today that you might like. I did the Toy Story 2 thing. That's just gone up. And then this morning I think I did like a John Mayer-ish type thing where I was trying not to play too much shreddy stuff. Where was I? A flat maybe? So I've talked about it a bit. I've got don't know if I can type yet. Yes I can. Right. I'm going to forward you one of my videos. I don't want to upload. So that video is one that I've talked about quite a bit, but in that video I show you 7 chords in C major that are kind of my some of my things that I just really like the sound of. So I think about the major scale generally for most of my stuff, and I'm thinking very much in a key at all times. So if I'm in C major, any chord that I play is going to be made up of the notes of C major, perhaps with some alterations, like I can add in stuff, but I'm still thinking in C major. So the alterations and stuff come from like a lot of jazz ideas, so these kind of chords, and this one. But really the only way that I think you can sensibly add chords to your playing is to instantly start using them. So for instance, if I show you this chord, you learn it in C major and just start using it. So anytime you see C major written down, or you're playing in a song in C major, just chuck this chord in and you'll start to learn what that sound is and how it works. So that's how I've built up any chords that I can play, and you'll find new ways of playing chords as well. Then the other places that chords that I learn come from, if you watch players like Eric Johnson or Alan Holdsworth, pretty much if you listen to 5 seconds of their music, they'll have played 2 or 3 chords that you've never really played before. So again, don't think of like the whole piece of music, because that's probably a bit overwhelming, but you might take one tiny idea at a time and chuck that in to the mix of what you already know. So pretty quickly on in my musical life, I decided that that kind of sound was a bit boring for me, like normal bar chords and and instead I would play things like so then also anytime that I'm learning a jazz tune, I'm looking at players like Keith Jarrett, who's a piano player, or Bill Evans, and there might be little bits in the song which jump out at me and make me think, okay, what are they doing roughly there? And then I'll try and translate that to guitar. So that's how I ended up with this voicing. So that one's from a Bill Evans tune, I think. So yeah, I can't do it with all of my chords, but most of them I think I can trace back to coming from somewhere else. at some point or another. Like this idea I use all the time. I can't remember where it came from, but it works. So that makes some sort of sense. So I'm going to keep doing these kind of chord videos as long as people find them useful. And the more that people share them around and sort of they get watched, the more I'll have an incentive to keep doing them. But at the moment I get a fairly good response from the chord videos. The most beautiful chord I know is this. I think, for me anyway. So it's like it's like an A major 7 add 9 in first inversion. Not really raunch. I'm thinking of home key is mostly what I'm thinking of. The ugliest chord I know that works, I think this is one of them. That to me is ugly. Something really ugly about that. Or G played like this. That sounds ugly to me. Or this. And that. Those to me are ugly sounds. So raunch, no, I don't want to land on the 1-3-5 that major scale generally, because the 3 perhaps, 3 and 7 and 9 are the more interesting notes that I find to land on. But I'm not thinking too much particularly when I'm playing. If I'm playing like a 5 chord, I prefer to not even hit the 3rd often. So yeah, raunch, let me just play something in D. So here's the 3, here's the 7, there's the 9. To me, those have much more of a story to them than... Like, obviously those notes have their place, but for me that's where the money is for me. Like, those notes inspire me more. And then if I was going to go to the G, same again, that's sending the clowns, isn't it? The other thing that I think kind of underpins this thinking of mine is that if you play so those technically are all 1-3-5 you know, should in theory sound very musical, but I think if you stick entirely to 1, 3 and 5, it doesn't actually sound very melodic, kind of counterintuitive, I think. For instance, you know, sweep picking. Sweep picking in theory should be like super melodic sounding, right? But it kind of doesn't, I don't think, anyway. Whereas I think the 3, 5 and 7 kind of do. And then there's also a jazz approach to this. So take D major. The 1 and the 5 don't actually describe whether that's a minor or a dominant, or they don't really describe anything, because the 1 and the 5 for any chord are always the same, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? So like D minor and D major, the D and the A are always the same. The only thing that changes is the 3 and the 7. Does that make sense? So those are my kind of thoughts. So I wouldn't say there's strict rules or anything, but those are kind of my thoughts on the 135 and the 379 stuff. So I'm not saying I'm right about any of it or anything. Those are just kind of my thoughts on why I wouldn't necessarily recommend targeting 135 all the time. 3 and 7 are kind of actually more colourful. I think they're called colour tones, possibly. I might have read that somewhere once. And the 6 even. There's your 3. Any more questions, feel free to chuck them in. Also, so don't underestimate the power of the pentatonic box, I think. So this is pentatonic. That's not. And what we found the other day on the stream, these kind of chords, these are pentatonic. Raunch, have you seen my series on getting more out of pentatonics? What do you mean, what pattern am I using? So yeah, it's just a sequence. I'm going to do another video on this, so this will be in my getting more out of pentatonics part 4, I think we're on. So I think a lot of people potentially might just stop with these 2 pentatonic shapes. But don't forget these other ones. So there's loads even in the pentatonic scale. I think you could be a strictly pentatonic player and still get loads of great stuff out of it. So this. No, I stick with D major, because G major is the 4 of D major. So all throughout that I'm purely thinking D major. There's no need necessarily to keep complicate things, in my opinion. The more I think about playing, the less good my playing becomes, I feel. Oh yeah, JP just said exactly the same thing as I thought. I will also say, hey, it's cool. Can't Taufik, because you don't want your tonal centre to shift to G, right? And the ninth relative to D major is still a target note. Do you mean when I'm playing on the G over this kind of thing, Raunch? So let me just show you a cool thing, right? If the bass note is D, that C sharp is a third, yeah? If the bass note is G, it's a sharp 11, I think. So I can still target that, because that's a sharp 11, which is a super like Lydian sound. Very much makes that G sound like it's in D major. What else did we say? The 9. We can still target the 9 over G. That'll be the 6 of G. If we think about it, this is. I wouldn't recommend thinking about it too much. And then the B, in D we're playing the C sharp, the 7. Wait, I've already done that. The 3rd of D, sorry. Oh, Jason, that's really kind of you. The G, what am I playing? So the 3rd of the D was F sharp, wasn't it? Is now the 7th of G major. So you start to hear the connectedness of everything if you're playing in a truly major key and moving through it in the way that I'm thinking. Does that make sense, Raunch? Thank you, Jason. That's really kind of you. I've got to upload that thing, actually. I can do that now while you're here. So, like JP said earlier up the page, I think the guitarist's way of thinking and the way that we're taught sometimes, like the prevalence of modes in the guitar teaching is quite... Right, I need to mute that. It's quite substantial. I don't think that there's many other instruments where there's such a focus on modes. Not that I know many other instruments, but I think sometimes we can start thinking of modes, like I did a video on that as well, didn't I? But before it's really appropriate to, or in places where it's not necessarily the what I would consider would be the first area that I would go if I was thinking of a solo. Yeah, I'm self-taught as well, Raunch, so we're in the same boat. But anytime I'm playing in a key, the last thing on my mind really is modes. I'm thinking of what my home is here. So D major is the home. So what's G relative to D major? What is E relative to D major? And harmonising the major scale. That's... if that makes sense. Right, here we go, Jason. I think I'm uploading this now. New post audio. Keep the questions coming if you've got them. Otherwise, I'm going to revert back to my cycle of fourths thing, which no one's asked about yet. What is this? One key Rosie. G major. Backing track. Good, Jason. Right, so here's again what I'm working on. So by the end of this exercise, whenever I eventually finish it, what I'm going to have is 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. You can feel free to ask more questions, Raunch. I'm sure it helps people that don't have questions anyway. And it helps keep things moving. At the moment, I'm moving through the cycle of fourths with that progression, if that makes sense. So I start in C, and I've got an E minor, then an A, then a D minor, then a version of G, and then a version of C. And then I need to change that to, yeah. So basically what it means is that you're moving up in a cycle of fours, same as the circle of fifths means that you're moving up in a cycle of fifths. So where was I? So E, 2, 5, 1. Now we're in F, so I need a 3, a 6, a 2, a 5, and then this interesting one. Right, now I need to make the transition to B flat major, so we now start on a D minor, a G major of some form, and then E flat major we need to get to. So there's G minor we need to start with. Then this F minor. I keep ending up on that same version of the 1, which is probably a bit repetitive, so that's annoying. What did we want? Where were we? We're in E flat. So we're starting on G minor. There's a little substitution, so that's at minute 51. 51. I'm just trying to make a note of ideas that I stumble across that I quite like. That was an E flat. So there I start with a G minor, then this C, and then I kind of F minor but an A flat major kind of sound, and then move that up a minor third, and then resolve. Right, then I need to move to A flat major. You put up a video about being melodic. What didn't you get about it? Jason, I don't really have an issue with that because all of my presets are in that folder, aren't they? Although I haven't backed up this particular preset I'm using, which is the YouTube version, which has some low end cut off of it. Yeah, because I have the Google Drive folder of all of my stuff. Isaac, if you want me to try and talk through the concept of that video, I'm happy to try. Where was I? A flat major. Oh dear. Okay, so just ask some questions, Isaac, and I'll see if I can talk you through any questions that you might have. So the idea of that video, let me get that video up and see what I'm melodic. Alright, so here we go. So, what does it mean to be melodic is the first question. That's the video to which you're referring. So, to me, melodic is like a phrase that gets thrown around in kind of the shred community a bit. But I think it's more because there's a lack of melodic content in shred in general, is why that you would point out when there is a melodic player in that community, right? Or am I wrong on that? I could be wrong, but that's why I think that the talk of so this is the idea. So we talk about melodic in the shred community purely because I think often there's a lack of melody in general. So when someone does play with melody, it becomes noticeable because there's a lot of playing which doesn't, like a lot of sweep picking or whatever doesn't sound melodic, a lot of tapping doesn't sound melodic, alternate picked fast lines don't sound melodic. So what is melodic playing? The kind of clue is that it's got melody in the title. So if you really want to work on your melodic playing, I think you should work on trying to play melodies that already exist. So that means, any pop song that you hear, there is a melody in most pop songs, or most of the good ones have nice melodies that are good to play. So I think it's worth just sitting down and playing melodies. It's basically what I'm advocating. So, someone pick a tune. So if you want to improve your melodic playing, that's what I'm advocating. Play actual melodies of songs that already exist. That's why I play these things like Randy Newman. That's why I play random pop songs that I like. And that's why if someone had made a decent suggestion other than Motown with Smoke on the Water, I would have tried to play that particular melody in a way that was sort of satisfying in some way. So if you come back to me with another question, Isaac, I'll try and answer. Just let me know how you're getting on with that. Motown, how strict on timing am I? So the things that I practice, I will be strict on timing, or try to be strict on timing. So with a metronome or with the idea in your head, I'm trying to be conscious of where the line or pattern will end and where the beat is. If you do analyse my playing, there's bits where it switches between triplet and a normal sort of quarter or not quarter, 16th or 32nd note. But those are things you can practice as well. So you could go 1, 2, 3, wait, So I wouldn't say that I'm particularly strict, and I wouldn't say my timing's very accurate, but I am trying to be, if that makes sense. Yeah, so Isaac, I think in terms of playing melodically, you don't need to worry about the scales and stuff. You need to worry about trying to play melodies that already exist. So, you know, you might pick an Ed Sheeran song or something that you actually like to listen to, but simple things, and figure out how to play the melody that you're hearing. The good thing about this kind of thing is that generally it'll be songs that you can already sing in your head, and again, that's part of what playing melodically is about. It's about being able to execute an idea that was melodic. So yeah, that's my advice on that. Yeah, slowing down at the end of the fast lick. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much, but when you're practicing, I would practice trying to play in time. Don't overanalyze it too much, because then you can end up anticipating the beat too much, which is something that I suffer from doing. So I'm playing ahead of the beat and stuff, and playing too fast and all that sort of stuff. So I've got my beat now for 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll be trying to continuously hear that beat anytime I'm playing a line. If that makes sense. So other thing to try Motown is to do like short bursts, and see how that. So then, if you don't feel like you have the technique, I would just practice being accurate at what you are executing. So if you work on accuracy more than technique and try and make things feel like they're flowing, then hopefully speed will follow. But trying to keep really conscious of where that beat is hopefully helps to keep your line kind of centered in, not too rushy or anything. I think naturally your technique will chuck in little bits that rush and stuff like that. I think that's just an aspect of improvisation anyway. You know, not everything can be perfect. But I think that's more interesting than rehearsing everything and every solo. Probably, to me it is anyway. You know, if Eric Johnson is improvising his solos live, then I feel like I should be too, if you know what I mean. Because he's played more beautiful solos than I'm ever going to play, and then he doesn't repeat them. So I feel like there's definite value in just trying to improvise. Any requests, Jason? And also Motown, so like Jason says, this kind of thing for me is quite fun to practice over, so I'm rarely playing without some sort of accompaniment or something else to figure out whether I'm playing in time with the other thing or not. That has its own issues in that I'm quite dependent on other sources for timing, so it's something to think about as well actually. So I'm going to try and do some of those two note arpeggios that we were talking about and see what happens. Now to G. Now let's try B minor. I'm going to try E minor in first inversion. 3, 4. A. Now back to D in second inversion. 4. Now I'm going to try those, but in the normal positions that I'd use, and see if I can do them as well. So we'll try G first. It's rubbish, wasn't it? E. That one worked okay. A. Now B minor. Now D in first inversion, second inversion. I'm going to finish at 7, so get your questions in now if you've got some. Yeah, Mark, I managed to find a way to make things sound a bit better, which I'm quite happy with. But thank you for saying. So the circle of fifths has nothing really to do with songwriting and nothing really to do with improvising, in my opinion. It's simply a structure which you can use to kind of move through an exercise. So for instance, say, yeah, it's great. So say for instance you're thinking about this arpeggio for whatever reason. So right, so you got the C major arpeggio, C major 7. How else are you going to practice that? So one sensible way to do it is just to move it around the circle of fifths. So you just go, okay, now I'm going to play it in G. Sorry. And then what's next? D. Yeah, then A. Then E. So for me, I don't use it at all as a songwriting tool or as an improvising tool. It's purely as a structure to move ideas through. So for instance, if you had a progression, you might have 2-5-1, so D minor in C, then what would that be in F? Oh, G minor, C, F. What would that be in B flat? C minor, F, B flat, F minor. Does that make sense? That's how I would think about the circle of fifths. There are other things. So for instance, so one other thing that you could think about with the circle of fifths is you can substitute kind of the one from the opposite side. So if you were in G, no, that doesn't make sense, so ignore that. My Manhattan. What do you mean by your Manhattan? You mean that one? So the process for that was listening to the melody first, figuring out what the harmony was, which comes fairly quickly to me, but putting the two together in a way that, so the voicings are mostly just a utility type thing, so I'm focused mainly on trying to make that melody kind of seamless. So let me work out what the higher chords are. I'm not going to be allowed to play it, am I? However, if there's no reason that I couldn't break down some of those chords and stuff if you wanted me to at a later date, so because I can't remember what I did. I don't know what you mean by counter to the piano. let me just, if I turn this down, maybe I can just hear it. I'll just turn my sorry, so that very first chord that I hit, that, yeah, the Lola Dirty Blondes. Can you hear me again? I've just turned things down so that I don't get demonetized. Yeah, that's just a generic kind of voicing that I use a lot. So it's like an one of my favourite kind of chords. Maybe I should put that in my next favourite chords video. It's quite simple, but I think it says a lot. Can be moved around the whole pentatonic as well. Actually. Yeah, I really like the sound of that. So it's an A, an E, another A, and then a B. So it'd be like A5, 9, I guess, or A sus 9. You could chuck the A in the bottom as well. It's not quite a major 9, because a major 9 would sound like this, right? But you could go between those two quite nicely. But that would be that's a cool sound. That is a major 9. That one, yeah. Nice. That's another good idea actually if you're interested in chord stuff, Raunch. Move the same voicing around the scale and find the other places that it works. It wasn't even Raunch who was asking about chords, was it? I can't remember who was asking about chords. So for instance, in this A, I can move this A major 9 voicing to the, starting from this A instead, and then starting from this D, this E. So depending on what bass note I put in it, I guess I could get that as well. So I find that you can get quite a lot of use out of one voicing in that way, and again that's one of those same ways that you might build up kind of So it sounds like you maybe know more chords than you do or whatever. Not that it's particularly a competition or anything, or that anyone's particularly judging you, but it's like a lot of different sounds. Nice. And then you could use it on the G even for like a... Any more questions? Anyway, so there's a couple of things on my channel that you might enjoy that went up today. Some videos on kind of recording went up yesterday, and also this lick that you might want to check out. If you want to learn that sort of thing, there's a legato lick. And yeah, that's alright, Brew. Hopefully it was useful. I found it quite useful. I think it's definitely good to learn those arpeggios in that way as well. I think they're a bit easier to visualize in some ways. Yeah, there's a couple of videos going up on the channel that you might like. Yeah, I think that video will be useful for you, Raunch. It's nothing super technical or anything, but I think it just is it's a way that I wish I'd been looking at arpeggios a lot longer ago, I think, probably. Yeah, so there's a Toy Story 2 cover that I put up. Do I wish my California Tweed had the cab clone? Not really, because I've now got some nice mics from Aston, and that GFI cab Zeus is quite cool. I did talk with Mezzo about potentially getting the new, what is it, the IR cab clone, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to afford it anymore, really, the way things are at the moment. I would have been interested in doing some demos of it, but I'm not really sure I can justify buying anything right now. So it's more a case of, I think for a lot of us, at the time is kind of about getting more out of what you've already got than going out and buying new gear. Probably, I imagine quite a lot of you are in the same kind of boat as me in that regard. So I'm not really looking for anything new at the moment. And I think that maybe that's quite a refreshing way to think about stuff anyway. So, you know, you might think about, oh, I'll use this tube screamer that I've already got in a different way, or about rediscovering things that you already have. Yeah, I don't think they've started shipping them yet, Mark, but when I play with loops, do you put the reverb before or after looper? I would put the reverb after, if I have the choice. Because that way you get the reverb. Wait. No, reverb, the looper I put at the very end of the chain, sorry. I don't know actually. So if I was going into an amp, the reverb would be after, wouldn't it? Be after looper. With the devices that I use, I think I generally put the looper. Let me have a look. So the reverb is after the looper on this helix patch. Yeah, so maybe looper. The thing is, if I've got delay on the loop, I would want that to be able to be turned off or on. I think, I don't know. Drive I would want to be independent of the loop, so the loop has to go after drive, I think. So on my pedal board itself, my actual pedal board, the looper is the very last thing before the amp. On this particular patch, which is clean, the looper goes before the amp and before the reverb. So that would be a similar thing, but I don't have anything else on that, like drive or anything, so I don't have to worry about that. But drive I would put before the looper. Hopefully that answers your question. So yes, if anyone was interested, particularly in me doing a bit of a breakdown of any of my stuff, then Patreon generally is... Oh, that's not even right. It's generally the place to look, and feel free to request stuff on there, backing tracks and so on. I put up any backing tracks that I made for people that want them, if they've asked for them, some that they don't ask for. And I'm thinking of doing some more of those kind of legato lick short little things. If anyone else has got ideas for which ones that I should do, leave a comment somewhere and I should be able to do that. If you want to support me in any way, if you could just share my channel around to other guitar friends or share the odd video on Facebook or whatever, that really helps me, I think, because it helps, you know, new people find me. But thank you for joining me and watching, and I should be around at some point. I'm about to upload some more stuff to the channel, but yeah, if you like what I'm doing, that's good. Share it around a little bit if you could, and thank you very much for joining on this live chat, and hopefully it was useful in some small way. Thank you, Jason, for the donation thing. That's super awesome of you, and I hope everyone's as safe as can be, and family and all that are doing well, and you're not too bored in this whole lockdown situation. Again, thanks for joining. I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys. Yeah, you too, Jason. Enjoy that backing track. I think it's quite a fun one. More live shows. You want me to carry on doing this sort of thing, yeah? If people like it, then I can carry on doing it. Just let me know that you want me to do them. Cool. Catch you all soon. Cheers, then.